I don't know what it was about that night that made everything feel heavier. Maybe it was the way the room was too quiet, or the way his presence seemed louder than the silence itself. I felt him before I saw him, his eyes on me, steady, unflinching, burning with something he probably thought he was hiding. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was imagining things, that his gaze wasn't lingering the way it felt on my skin. But the truth is, I knew he was watching me. Every move I made, every small shift of my body, it was like he was tracking me without a word. I caught him staring once. Our eyes met, just for a second, but in that second, my breath caught in my chest. There was no mistaking what I saw in him. It wasn't curiosity, it wasn't innocent, it was need, and something inside me didn't push it away. Instead, I tilted my head, held his gaze a little longer than I should have. My lips curved into the faintest smile, the kind you give when you're daring someone to do something reckless. I could feel the heat building in the space between us, thick and heavy, like it was pulling us closer even though neither of us moved. That's when the words slipped out, almost like they weren't mine, soft, dangerous, a challenge I wasn't sure I even meant to give. If you need it, just ask. The air shifted instantly. I'd cracked something open, something I couldn't take back. The words hung in the air between us, heavier than anything I'd ever said. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. I told myself it was just a slip, a moment of weakness, but I didn't move to take it back. I didn't tell him I didn't mean it. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he just kept staring, his jaw tight, his chest rising and falling a little faster than before. The silence felt dangerous, like we were standing at the edge of something we couldn't step away from once we crossed. I turned slightly, pretending to adjust something just to break the tension, but I could still feel him. His eyes didn't leave me. Finally, he spoke. His voice was low, almost rough, like he was holding back more than he wanted to let out. You don't know what you're saying, but I did. I knew exactly what I was saying. I just didn't know why I said it out loud. My throat went dry, but I lifted my chin, forcing myself to look at him again. Maybe I do. The shift was immediate. The controlled calm he carried cracked, just enough for me to see what he'd been holding back. His eyes darkened, and the weight of his stare pinned me in place. He took one step closer, not enough to touch me, not enough to close the gap completely, just close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off him, close enough that every nerve in my body went on high alert. "Don't play with me," he warned softly, but the way my body responded told me. Maybe I wasn't playing at all. I swallowed hard, my mouth dry, my thoughts running faster than I could catch them. He was close now, too close, and yet I didn't step back. I could have, I should have, but my feet felt cemented to the floor. His eyes searched mine like he was waiting for me to flinch, to break the moment, to laugh it off as a joke, but I didn't, I couldn't. Instead, I whispered, almost without realizing it, "I'm not playing." The air between us shifted instantly. Something inside him snapped. The restraint, the careful distance he always kept, gone. His jaw flexed, his hands curled into fists at his sides like he was battling with himself. For a moment he turned his head, looking away like he was trying to give himself an out. But then he looked back at me, and there was no going back. "You have no idea what you're asking for," he said, his voice low, steady, but laced with something dangerous. A nervous laugh slipped out of me, but it wasn't because I thought it was funny. It was because the tension had grown so thick, so heavy, that it was either laugh or let myself admit how much I wanted it too. "Then show me," I murmured before I could stop myself. The moment the words left my mouth, the room felt smaller, hotter. His chest rose sharply, and for the first time I saw his control waver, and that terrified me. Because it also thrilled me. The silence that followed my words was deafening. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator in the next room, the ticking of the clock on the wall, even the sound of my own heartbeat slamming in my chest. His breathing had changed, slower, heavier, and he stepped closer, erasing what little space had been left. I felt the heat radiating off his body, so close I could almost taste it. I thought he would back away, that common sense would kick in. But instead, his hand lifted, hesitated for just a second, and then brushed lightly against my arm. The touch was so small, so delicate, yet it sent a shiver rushing down my spine. I should have pulled back. That was my chance to walk away, to laugh, to pretend this hadn't gone too far. But instead, I leaned into it, my lips parting without a word. "You really don't want me to stop, do you?" he asked, his voice gravelly, as if the restraint was shredding with every passing second. I bit my lip, not from nerves this time, but from the flood of anticipation I could no longer hide. My silence was an answer in itself, and he understood it. The moment he realized I wasn't going to say no, something inside him broke free. His hand slid from my arm to my wrist, holding me, not harshly, but firmly enough that I knew he wasn't asking anymore, and still, I didn't resist. His grip on my wrist lingered, steady but questioning, as though he was giving me one final chance to pull away. But I didn't. I couldn't. My body had already betrayed me long before my mind caught up. I lifted my eyes to his, and what I saw there made my stomach flip. Hunger. Not the casual kind you could mistake for a fleeting glance, but raw, caged hunger, the kind that once unleashed couldn't easily be contained. He exhaled sharply, as if holding himself back was physically painful. His thumb brushed across the inside of my wrist, slow, deliberate, a touch so intimate that I felt it burn into my skin. "You don't even know what you're asking for," he murmured, his voice low, roughened with restraint. Maybe he was right, maybe I didn't, but I knew what I wanted in that moment, and it was standing inches from me, staring at me like I was the only thing in the world worth breaking rules for. My lips trembled before I finally whispered back, "Then show me." The words hung in the air, heavy, irreversible. His jaw tightened, his chest rising and falling faster, and I realized I had just tipped us over the edge. There was no going back now. The second those words left my mouth, something in his eyes changed. It was as if the final thread of control he'd been clinging to had frayed. His hand, still holding my wrist, tightened just slightly, not enough to hurt, but enough to remind me who held the power in that charged silence. He stepped closer, so close I could feel the warmth of his body, the steady beat of his chest syncing with my own quickening pulse. My breath caught, trapped somewhere between fear and anticipation. "You really don't want me to hold back, do you?" he asked, his voice husky, every word vibrating against the thin air between us. I swallowed hard, my lips parting but no words coming. I didn't need to answer. My silence was enough. My body leaning in, my pulse racing, the way my eyes refused to look anywhere but at his mouth. It was all the answer he needed. He tilted his head slightly, his breath brushing over my ear as he whispered, "Careful, because once I start, I won't stop." A shiver shot down my spine, and instead of retreating, I tilted closer. My own whisper trembled as it slipped past my lips. "Then don't." That was it. The dam was about to break. The second I said it, I saw his jaw tighten, like he was holding back something fierce. His hand left my wrist and instead brushed slowly along my arm, sending sparks straight through me. My skin betrayed me. It leaned into his touch, even though my mind screamed this was a line I shouldn't cross. He searched my eyes one last time, as if silently asking for permission without needing the words. And I didn't look away. I couldn't. The space between us evaporated. His chest pressed against mine, and I could feel the strength in him, the heat radiating like a fire I'd been standing too close to for too long. When his lips finally brushed mine, it wasn't soft. It was hungry, urgent, the kind of kiss that takes without asking because you already gave the answer. I gasped against him, my hands instinctively clutching his shirt, pulling him closer instead of pushing him away. Every nerve in my body screamed that this was wrong, but at the same time it felt terrifyingly right. He pulled back just an inch, his forehead resting against mine. "Say the word and I'll stop," he whispered, breathless. But I didn't say it. My silence gave him permission louder than words ever could. I should have stopped. That was the moment, the final chance to walk away before everything collapsed. But instead of saying no, my lips parted, and he kissed me again, harder this time. It wasn't careful anymore. It was raw, urgent, like he'd been holding himself back for far too long. His hands gripped my waist, pulling me against him so firmly I could feel the weight of his desire pressing into me. I bit my lip, trying to hold in the sound that almost escaped me, but he noticed, and it only made him bolder. His mouth trailed down the side of my neck, each kiss pulling me further away from reason. My hands betrayed me completely, sliding up his chest, feeling the solid heat of him, the size of him under my fingertips. I had never felt anything like it, and it scared me how much I wanted more. "I can't stop thinking about this," he muttered against my skin, voice rough, almost breaking. "About you." Those words should have shattered me with guilt. They should have made me step back, but instead they ignited something inside me I had been pretending wasn't there. My body pressed into him in answer, silently begging for what I was too afraid to admit out loud. And in that moment I knew I wasn't going to stop this. His hands moved lower, finding the curve of my hips, pulling me tighter against him until I could feel every inch of what he wanted. My breath caught, sharp and shaky, as if my body was betraying the secret my mind was still trying to deny. "You don't know what you're doing to me," he whispered, forehead pressed against mine. His voice was strained, thick with need, but I did know, because I felt the same storm raging inside me. I let out a trembling laugh, but it wasn't from humor. It was from nerves, fear, and the dangerous thrill of crossing a line I could never uncross. My fingers curled into his shirt, clutching him like I was drowning, and he was the only thing keeping me above water. For a second, he hesitated. His chest rose and fell with a deep breath, as though he was fighting against himself. "If you want me to stop, tell me now." Those words hung between us like a final warning. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. This was the out, the last chance to step back before I shattered everything. But when my lips parted, the word stop never came. Instead, I whispered the one thing that sealed our fate: "Don't." The instant that word left my mouth, something inside him snapped. His mouth was on mine, rough and desperate, like he'd been holding back for far too long. I gasped into the kiss, my body melting against his even though my mind screamed at me about what I was doing. His hands roamed with a hunger I had only imagined before, sliding beneath the hem of my shirt, pulling me closer as though he needed to feel every inch of me pressed against him. I clung to him, breathless, each touch fanning the flames I'd tried so hard to smother. The room spun, or maybe it was just me, dizzy with desire and guilt colliding all at once. My lips trembled against his, but I didn't stop. I didn't pull away. Instead, I deepened it, pulling him closer until there was no space left between us. A soft groan escaped him, vibrating against my mouth. God, I've wanted this. He whispered, his voice breaking as though he was confessing a sin, and in that moment I wasn't thinking about consequences. I wasn't thinking about the betrayal or the fallout. All I could think about was how right, how dangerously right, it felt to finally give in. His words still lingered in the air, heavy and intoxicating, when I felt his hands slide lower, fingers tracing lines of fire along my skin. I should have stopped him right then. I should have pushed him back, told him this was a mistake, that we couldn't cross this line, but instead I leaned into him, the way he looked at me, like I was the only thing in the world he craved, made every ounce of resistance crumble. My breath came in shaky bursts, my heart pounding so violently I thought he might hear it. He pressed me back against the wall, his lips traveling down my neck, each kiss leaving behind a trail that sent shivers coursing through me. My hands, almost on their own, tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, begging him without a single word to keep going. Say it. He murmured against my skin, his voice low and urgent. Tell me you want this too. My lips parted, but nothing came out at first. The weight of what I was about to admit hung heavy in my throat. One word would shatter the life I knew. One word would ignite something we could never undo. And yet, as his fingers tightened at my waist and his breath warmed my collarbone, the word slipped free, trembling and dangerous. Yes, the sound of it broke something wide open between us. His mouth was back on mine instantly, hungrier, wilder, as though that single word had unleashed everything he'd been holding back, and I let it. When it was over, the silence felt deafening. My body was still trembling, but not from his touch. This was something heavier, something colder. He held me close, his breath slowing, his hand brushing gently along my back as if to reassure me. But the truth was, no touch, no whisper, no tender gesture could erase what we'd just done. I stared at the ceiling, my mind spiraling. The walls around me weren't just walls anymore. They were witnesses to my betrayal. I thought about my husband, his laugh, the way he trusted me without question, the years we had built together, and shame tightened like a vice around my chest. He whispered my name again, soft, almost pleading. And for a second, I almost convinced myself it was love, that what just happened was fate pulling us together instead of weakness tearing me apart. But deep down, I knew better. This wasn't love. This was escape. This was temptation I hadn't had the strength to resist. I turned to face him, his eyes searching mine for an answer, for some kind of confirmation that what we did was right. But all I could manage was a broken smile, a mask to cover the war raging inside me. The truth was clear, though I couldn't say it aloud. Something in me had changed forever, and no matter how tightly I tried to hold on to the life I had before, I knew the cracks were already spreading. There was no going back.